Suit yourself. Goodbye, Feofan. This time, that's what it truly is.
And don't I know it? Goodbye, Zandik.
I cannot believe that Act 9 and Act 10 of Nodcry is just a conclusion to tying up loose ends in Sumeru. It is perfection. We start this quest in Sumeru through the eyes of Collei. But this is no ordinary Sumeru. We are in a premonition of something that will happen if we do not prevent it. Stop! Stop it, Genshin! You have to be kidding me. Already? We're not even 2 minutes in. We're not even 2 minutes in, and already we're doing some weird freaking time stuff. I was in disbelief that they would put us through this again, but I absolutely love these moments. And although I didn't stream this entire experience, you can still see my reactions to some of my favorite moments from both Act 9 and Act 10 in the link in the description. What has been so fascinating about these moments is typically with the Traveler, a moment like this would just be, oh, that's so insane. However, since we are seeing this through the eyes of Collei, she's hurt that the people in her life that saved her no longer see her as the same person as before. Sure, there are some goofy moments with Kaveh, but when she runs into Tighnari, it's just so heartbreaking. The animation team did such a fantastic job adding so much weight to Collei's movements. The way the camera zooms in to make the feeling of Collei's world closing in on her. The camera going in and out of focus, illustrating her losing control. The way they have her clasp her hands to her chest in disbelief as her tears are welling up more and more. This is some of the best in-game animation I have seen from Genshin Impact to date. And both Act 9 and Act 10 has some remarkable in-game animations, from carrying Nahida on her back to Kaveh's expressive attitude towards Alhaitham. The conflict of these two acts is brilliant. It uses what we learned about Capitano, giving his life to the Lord of the Night, to not only allow the Night Kingdom to continue existing, but to ferry lost souls into the Night Kingdom. It also incorporates the ability to provide some sort of Wi-Fi connection to the Emerald tree, similar to what we have saw with the Wanderer when he was using the Emerald to calculate the world formula. And of course, it utilizes every single important quest in Sumeru to provide one of the most rewarding experiences in Genshin Impact. How wild is it that Dottore allowed himself to die so that he can be sent directly to the ley lines? That is some 5-star villain material. It is truly remarkable. Oh my god. Are they referring to death? Like, Dottore killed him, like he allowed himself to die. Please be the case. That is such an insane thing for him to do, but it is absolutely Dottore.
By entering Irminsul through death.
Oh my god, okay. Dottore is a genius. King, holy. It's funny because throughout my experience playing these acts, I never would have thought that death would have been a viable way to access the ley lines while not losing control. But here we are. The story does a great job at using the Sumeru City and Rainforest evacuations as a way to increase the stakes of the chaos while also having Regrader's purpose very misleading. I didn't have enough time to process the ley lines opening up in Act 9 because as soon as we saw that, the Traveler was like, I guess that's cool, let's go talk to a pep. Which I think is such a good way to imply that this was the moment when Regrader deposited Dottore's soul without having us think too hard about why did the ley lines open? Which now means that the Regrader can just mess with us for the entire quest until he arrives in Sumeru City. Before I talk about the incredible way this conflict concludes, I wanted to highlight some awesome characters. First, the guiding nodes. I've seen a similar feature implemented in Final Fantasy XVI, and I'm so grateful that Genshin also implemented this. It's such a nice feature to just be able to get quick notes on characters and ideas. I last played all of these Sumeru quests back in 2023. I don't have a good grasp of all the lore, so having these friendly reminders of characters and concepts was so appreciated. Funny enough, the guiding notes even had a detailed portrait of Hermanubis, despite us never actually seeing this version of him. We also never got this much Apep love. For all of you Apep fans out there, congrats. I was so thrilled to have Apep play such a pivotal role in keeping Nahida alive. Now, this is where I can see people be rather upset, because through this entire set of acts, the game references and introduces characters from story and world quests from Sumeru. I do not know what that experience is like if you haven't met many of these characters being introduced, but as someone who did play all of these quests, I was extremely grateful. It was such a rewarding experience to have these characters that seemingly had their own separate unique stories in Sumeru come together to save Sumeru and stop Dottore. For Apep, I didn't remember how sassy she was, because every moment with her was so funny.
I know that we are both preparing for our revenge day and night.
Cut to Novelette hanging out with the Melusines like, oh, how are you doing all, everyone? You good? Made sure I made a nice cake for you all. I love how she thinks that Novelette is going to join her for her revenge against humankind, but it's a perfect moment. She did provide us some new lore about the Emerald tree being planted by the dragons, and the ley lines flowed with the power of the Light Realm. But it was appropriated by the Heavenly Principles to store souls, memories, and everything else we know about what it does today. And Apep isn't the only non-Archon quest reference in this set of acts. I want to express how happy I am to see Jet. Jet is one of my favorite characters in Genshin. I vibe with the Golden Slumber quest series, which I have a playthrough on the channel. Slumber summons the wandering sands. Drink not that bitter salt water, for the sorrows of tomorrow have gone away. Golden slumber. Hearing her story and her relationship with her dad as we explore all of these incredible ancient ruins, it definitely left an impression on me. So to see her play such a large role in the Archon quest felt so rewarding. I love the way they even animated her walk cycle. Also, the casting choice is excellent.
Not in the desert. Friends you can trust, but friends of friends, gotta keep an eye on them.
This is the first time Jet has been voiced, and Andi Renee Christensen has done such a fantastic job giving life to Jet. Andi nails the emotional closure Jet has with her father. Jet being able to see her father freed from the golden slumber to finally lay rest in the ley lines is so beautiful. I cannot believe we are getting closure for Jet's story 3 years later. And Genshin continues to close more stories in Sumeru because we get Leopard arriving in the Archon quest 3 years after their appearance in the Dirge of Bilquis quest series. Though honestly, I don't remember much of this quest series besides Babel and Azuric being hot and how cool of a location the Eternal Oasis is, so apologies to Leopard because they had quite a beautiful death at the end of Act 10. Also, randomly to throw the Aranara and Soul Rush here as well. Although I jokingly make fun of the length of the Aranara quest series, it was wonderful seeing them again, and I could not help but smile through their efforts of aiding the Traveler by giving us little healing items during fights, which was just so tremendously wonderful. And they also became our intelligence network as they helped us spy on the Fatui. It was a shame that they weren't voiced or even had a fake language for communication, but I greatly appreciated the R&R showing up. As for Soul Rush, I wish I had more of an appreciation for this character. I deeply disliked the world quest they were a part of because when I experienced that quest, I was just not enjoying my time playing Genshin. However, I did enjoy their role in this quest. Even if it was a small part they played, it was always a joy to see them there. Lastly, shout out to Rana. I cannot believe Rana just randomly showed up with Ronman during our attempt to reclaim Sumeru City. Strangely enough, she gets like the least amount of screen time and doesn't use her vision at all. Someone who also doesn't use a vision, or maybe even a delusion, is Regrader, aka Rooster, aka the character in the Snezhnaya preview teaser, aka the Tsaritsa.
Rulers lost control over their nation.
We saw this person fighting with us in the Snezhnaya teaser. Absolutely, this is the Tsaritsa. No way that's not the Tsaritsa. It
will
is
not argue.
Rooster. But this character was helping us in the preview for Snezhnaya, right? Look, I don't know what's wrong with me, okay? For some reason, I thought Regrader and the character in this Snezhnaya preview looked the same. They absolutely do not. I also thought that Pantalone's codename was Rooster because I thought Puccinella's codename was Mayor, and in my mind, there could be no way that two codenames started with an R. However, despite my embarrassing mistakes, what an incredible introduction to such a slimy character. His allegiance is to the art of the deal, and boy howdy does he show it so well. The way they kept him a mystery throughout the Archon quest was frustrating, but in a good way. It wasn't just done for the sake of a surprise, but because he didn't want to reveal his true identity because he didn't want it to conflict with his actual businesses. He also misled us by calling himself a subordinate of Dottore, which was true at some point in history, but now that's not true. He even has some sort of an ability to create illusions of himself based on his interaction with Cyno. And I love that we get the little drips of backstory we learned. The fact that Regrader was a part of Dottore's experiments, not only does it appear he has some of his organs replaced, like his lungs, but Regrader is in constant need of Dottore's elixir of immortality. I'm curious how this will play into Regrader's inevitable death, as Dottore said the Regrader stocks of elixirs will only last for a few more years, which will certainly extend past our journey into Snezhnaya. Also, one thing I noticed with Regrader's outfit is that it has some sort of abyssal coloration in addition to his typical electro-type colorations. So I'm curious if this is a part of Dottore's experimentation, or has he signed another deal with someone? We were also told in Act 8 that Rooster and Regrader are against each other in secret, and Rooster sending the PR letter at the end of Act 10. I'm curious if we'll actually be working alongside Rooster while we're in Snezhnaya. Cole is another character who got full closure. We learned through this entire set of acts that the reason she had these premonitions of things to come is because the God Remains Dottore injected into her were that of the Goddess of Flowers. And through this quest, we are seeing Cole grow and even utilize the power of the Goddess of Flowers to calm the Jinn. But what makes all of this so perfect is that this isn't what Cole wants. She doesn't want to be the next Goddess of Flowers. She just wants to be normal. I don't know if I remember a story I've watched or read or played that involved a character essentially rejecting a power no matter how good aligned these powers are. But I understand. Cole has been tormented her entire life practically. This is the first time where she can finally be at peace without having to worry about if she'll get sick again. If there'll be another premonition, she could just live a normal life. And that's what makes her closure at the end of Act 10 so beautiful. Last character I want to talk about is Dottore. What an incredible end to such a sinister character. The mind he has to allow himself to die in order to be deposited into the ley lines is truly mad, but in such an awesome way. I have always enjoyed Dottore as a character. Because he represents a character that truly keeps me on my toes, I cannot predict what he'll do next. I also love that we got his backstory, but presented in such a comical way, which is just him giving a presentation to Regrator, and it serves Zondik right for the awfulness he has done. After creating his segments refused to assist him when he was dying. I think Dottore is certainly an incredible villain that I will deeply miss. I'm looking forward to whatever villain will be in Snezhnaya. And before we close the video, I do want to talk about how awesome Act 10 resolves this conflict. Holy, okay. First, the story leads us to believe that we need to save the Immersal Tree. This allows the intensity to continue building up and building up against our team. We had to rush Nahida to a pep in hopes to get Nahida back on her feet as she tried to aid the Immersal Tree in processing information. We also needed the help of Nefer, who is able to free Hershef, Sobek, and Thoth and allow us to perform the adjustments to the Aru. These series of moments were incredible. Not only do the 3 pillars look freaking awesome, dude, I love all of their designs. It's so cool that Genshin is just getting more comfortable designing humanoid animals, because look, we gotta pour one out to Mountain Shaper and Mooncarver, man. They're just getting absolutely disgraced. I feel so bad that they got such boring NPC designs. Got a bit sidetracked. Let's go back to the Aru. We need help completing the Aru to transfer all the memories and information from the Immersal Tree. First, what an awesome idea for this quest. Instead of us repairing the tree, we're just offloading its information to another source. It was also great seeing Alhaitham and Kaveh again, as they'll be the ones performing the upgrades to the Aru. There was this goofy moment when Kaveh had to delete some old information from the Aru and they came across some info about some yellow sand. It was a dumb joke about peeing in the sand, but I actually really love that one. I also love learning that the Aru is actually just based on technology from Celestia. The goddess of flowers at one point visited Celestia and basically gathered all the information to build that technology in Sumeru and construct the Aru. It's just so fantastic. It was also great seeing how all the different Sumeru characters had a purpose in resolving this conflict. I love that we had a perfect moment between the Wanderer and Paimon where they both got to relate each other in the sense of feeling useless. I also cannot forget the incredible moment of Nahida using the Pyro-Gnosis to burn down the Immersal Tree, which is just such an insane twist. I was expecting us to give the Tsaritsa the Gnosis because increasingly, does it seem like the Tsaritsa might be cooking, given the knowledge that we are learning more and more about how corrupt the Heavenly Principles are. But to expend the power of the Gnosis during the Irminsul Tree, I actually don't believe that the Gnosis is gone. Firstly, the Gnosis is extremely important for Tsaritsa's plan, so I don't think her plan is done. And despite his death, Dottore has considered this experiment a success, which means that the Regrator might have retrieved the Gnosis, or potentially using the Pyro-Gnosis inside the Irminsul Tree allowed Dottore to extract the information that was emanating from the Gnosis to somehow give that information to the Tsaritsa or download that information to maybe recreate a fake Gnosis. I'm not sure, but it literally cannot be over. Either way, this has been truly a remarkable series of quests. This is probably one of the most rewarding Archon quests in Genshin, just because of how they brought everyone's Sumeru together. They combined all the world quests and story quests that you played in Sumeru to all lead to these 2 acts. It was just perfect to put one final bow on Sumeru. Thank you everyone for taking the time to watch me talk about how much I love Act 9 and Act 10. If you want to see highlights of my reactions to the quest, there is a link in the description, and let me know what you all enjoyed most about these 2 acts, and I'll see you later. Bye!